off, Nirav. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Love Relo, the voice of the relocation industry. I'm your host, Ben Cross, and I'm so blessed and honored to be here today with Nirav Desai, Total Rewards at Hanwha Energy. Nirav, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Hey guys. Hey Ben. Thanks for having me here. I'm the one who's honored and blessed, to be honest. So
We can both be honored and
that's
blessed.
true.
I don't
That's
corner
true.
the market on blessings or being honored. It's every day I get to do this show. It's so fun. Doing it with these great coworkers I have is great. Doing it with this phenomenal audience is great. And then, of course, the guests like yourself just make it. So I'm super stoked to be here today. Get in the comments, y'all. Let us know who you are, where you are out there. Check in with us. Nirav, where are you in the world right now?
Right now I'm in the woodlands just north of Houston. I mean, working at Hanwha Energy, but I've been around the block, I guess you can say.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You've got a neat history there, and a lot of global mobility kind of is a thread that runs not only through your personal life, but it's also been a career for you. So I'm kind of want to talk to you a little bit about that. I know you've had some interesting roles in the past too, some with AI explicitly,
hmm
in the title. So I expect big things on the AI front today from you. Okay. So we're gonna get into that a little bit, and we're gonna go down just down the rabbit hole here. We got Gabby checking in. Looking forward to this one. Dan Cross, my dad, actually just had surgery this morning, just elbow surgery. Worst case, we'll amputate, but hopefully he's doing well. Love you, Dad. Praying for you, buddy. Um, yeah, but Nirav, take us through a little bit here. Where did your journey begin?
Yeah. So just so personally, so I, I was born and raised in India, right? That's where I grew up.
Yeah.
In this theme of mobility, my family immigrated to the United States like 25 years ago now, right? And um, I don't have an HR background. I don't even have mobility background. And I've studied economics, but what I really wanted to study was advertising, which is what I did when I moved to the US. Worked in the marketing industry for about 4 years in Northern California. Didn't know what I was doing with my life. Someone said maybe go get another degree, so moved to Austin to get my MBA. And through that process, they make you take surveys sometimes, right? Like, hey, this is what you might be good at, and HR was one of the things that showed up, and it just so happened that ExxonMobil was recruiting for an HR intern at that spot. Interviewed, was lucky enough to get the internship, turned into a full time offer, and that was 16 years with ExxonMobil over there, right?
Wow, 16-year career at ExxonMobil. I mean, that's something to be proud of, in and of itself.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was great, and many different roles. That's where I really cut my teeth with like HR design and mobility. Um, and they ExxonMobil has like a very unique employee developmental model, right? And they really are robust about it. And it's every 2 to 3 years you get to do something different, right? You develop this breadth before you get into depth. Um, and so my journey was, initially, your typical business partner roles where you're doing a little bit of everything at that point in time, mobility, recruiting, supporting the business with effectiveness. So I had, experience working with like geoscientists, like folks at the unionized workforce, supply chain people. But then, my career shifted about like 7 years in there, where the company started, helping me get experiences with design, right? So talent acquisition design, and then I spent, a few years doing mobility, right? Like designing the company's mobility programs, because those programs, they were like so established. They hadn't been looked at for a couple
I
decades.
want to understand what that
Yeah,
process is like. We got a couple people in the comments here. Get in the
yeah,
comments, y'all. I want to give you some shout outs here. We got Rob Zeitz checking in from Cambridge, Mass. Awesome to see two of my favorite mobility people on the same show. Rob Zeitz, Wicked Smart from Cambridge, Mass. We love having you here, Rob. We were just talking about you backstage.
yeah.
Holly Downey checking in the house, Washington State. What's up, Holly? Good to see you there. Sharina, excited to hear about your MBA. Take a little teaser for later. Okay. Sharina said, that's so cool. I studied marketing. What did you think about that? You studied marketing and then you go into mobility. I mean, you end up in mobility. I mean, what do you think about the unpredictable nature of career paths? Did you ever think you'd be doing global mobility and all the stuff you're doing now?
No, and like right now at Hanwha, I'm doing like total rewards, in general, right? So
Yeah.
no, I you know, I guess I would have liked to think I had this all planned out, but I didn't. It was, here's what I want to do next. Maybe I have a goal, but life just takes you sometimes where it does, right? And I feel that's the kind of world we live in right now with AI all around us. There's a lot of unpredictability, and you got to be okay with that sort of discomfort in front of you, right? So marketing was fun. I don't. It was something I wanted to study. I tried it. I don't think it was it wasn't like driving passion, right? Like in me, it's not like, hey, I'm waking up every day and this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I'm not even sure if I'm there yet right now.
Yeah.
But and that like then prompts like, well, is there something else out there, right? And then you tag on to something, you learn, you grow, you develop, and you move on to the next thing. That's how it's worked out for me.
Yeah. Interesting here. I love the I talk about career pathing and everything. I was just talking about this today, actually. Rob Zeitz has a question. It says, so at ExxonMobil, do they do a few years of exploration before you really drill down? Sounds like a good way to maintain a talent pipeline.
Yeah, so Rob and I actually worked quite closely when I was at ExxonMobil. He, was a very important part from a consultant standpoint in helping, us figure out how to modernize our design, right? And I totally get his humor, right? If
Yeah.
anybody missed it, it's like right there. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it really is, right? I mean, I give a lot of credit to how I was developed there, because sometimes it's knowing a little bit of a lot of things so you can be dangerous enough, have informed discussions with credibility on a variety of topics, right? And part of this is also just broadening your perspective, right? Learning different things, being open to different experiences. So when you start actually getting into details, maybe you just know a little bit of a lot to make the right connections, right?
Yeah, yeah, interesting. And you were talking about designing, now here you are and you're designing programs, right? You talked about designing talent acquisition programs, which I'm kind of curious like what that means in the oil and gas industry, but also designing mobility programs. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So and obviously like every company is different, right? So I think at the you know you probably got to look at this with what really is your company's objective, right? I think you have to start like, whatever it is you do, like what problem are you trying to solve, and then tie in your HR/mobility goals to that overall business objective, right? And just very simply, right, is it that everybody wants to get the right balance between cost and experience, right? We get that, but like, hey, there could be a point in time where you're really driving into figuring out how to get employee experience or cost as a primary, right? So understanding what your objectives are is where I think you start, and then you start figuring out, so where am I today? Like, how is my program built today? Does it meet those objectives? Yes, no. Where do I think I want to be down the line? What are the gaps, right, between now and where I want to be?
What are some of those like KPIs when you talk about like objectives or what does success look like? How do you even define what success looks like? I understand like the business objectives,
Mhm.
but like within a mobility program, which is oftentimes kind of tactical. It's
Yeah,
kind of about moving the person to the place.
yeah,
How do you define, like, wow, is this success or is this not success?
yeah, and that is a tough one, right? Like, um, I wish I knew the perfect answer to this, but I'll put it this way. Um, I think there are some things you need to look at beyond, all right, how fast the tactical pieces, like you're saying, right? Like how fast, how easily do we get someone to move, right? I think you need to look at it also in terms of what came out of having us move somebody to a different location, right? Did they learn something that they can now apply to the next role that they're going to play in their life that adds value to the company, right? Um, so what skills did they develop? So you start looking at, you can't, if you want to get sophisticated, you want to look at metrics like what skills do I think this person had? What did I want them to get through this assignment? And what did they come out of it, right? What is the skill gap coverage, right? Through an assignment. That's one way you can measure success if that's what you want your program to come up with, right? You'd want to, understand, definitely what like it's not a performance thing, but from a program side, right? You'd want to understand, you want to have like cost transparency, but you'd also want to understand how easy it is for people who are moving, right, to understand the program, to be able to make sense of the policies that you have, right? So transparency on that level, that could be another metric, depending on how you want to get that out through engagement surveys or survey KPIs. So there are like a variety of different ways you can build KPIs depending on actually what you want your program to do, right?
Yeah.
And sorry, go ahead.
No, no, I was just saying, yeah, I get that, and I have a follow up here for you as well.
Yeah,
Uh, Christopher Barnett checking in, hey, from the San Francisco Bay, having a great afternoon at Fragment Work Right. What's up, Chris? How you doing? It's good to see you, buddy. Hey, get in the comments, y'all, with questions um, for Nirav here. I love talking to him about this stuff. I think it's so interesting too with the oil and gas and the energy sector right now. It's such a hot sector right now. It's funny because we talk about global mobility, and it's been kind of a weird few years here from a volume perspective since the post COVID pent up demand was flushed out, and it's been kind of a weird time. Well, there's obviously the geopolitical, but like just from a volume standpoint in our industry, but it seems like oil and gas and energy right now is kind of in the spotlight right now. Do you feel that, Nirav?
so at Hanwha, right, it's a bit different than at ExxonMobil. So Hanwha is renewables, ExxonMobil is a more traditional ONG, right? But I
Right.
think that I think this industry is generally always in the spotlight for one reason or another, right? The the thing that I've learned about the ONG companies is they do look at things from a really long term perspective, right? And part of this is because like it could take like a decade before you find oil, like you explore it, right? Drill it, like Rob says, and you start making money, right? It could be years. So you need the talent to stay with you in those situations for a long time as well. And therefore you need to make sure you develop them and move them around in the right way and have the right programs to support them, right? So I think like regardless of like what happens in terms of the spotlight, there's a level of consistency that ONG companies tend to have with their mobility program. There's always someone who needs to be at a place either to be developed or to provide skills to a local population that may not have it today, right? Because they are global companies.
Yeah, and so we see, like, with the price of oil, oil
Yeah,
and gas companies, the activity booms and kind of ebbs and flows, and we see that with Houston. Yeah, I'm up here in Dallas, right? And like
yeah,
Houston's always kind of our little rival city down there to in the towards the Gulf and everything. And sometimes they're up, and booming, and sometimes they're not based on kind of the price of oil. But then you also have the renewable sector, right, which is
yeah.
what Han was in, right? Like, do these run kind of counter cyclical to each other? Do they run together? Like, how does the mobility patterns within the renewables space tend to run?
I mean, the scale. So first of all, the scale is completely different. It's not as high, right? lower volumes in the renewable sector. The renewable sector right now, I mean, it's especially like solar, right? It's been hit because of certain regulations, right? It's not necessarily booming, so it's you know the mobility piece has scaled down a little bit, right? So I don't think that it's necessarily, hey, oil and gas, a traditional energy is cyclical up and therefore renewables is down. I do think they're both actually interconnected, and it's like you open up the show with, hey, there's blessings for everybody, right? I think both these spaces do work together, right? Ultimately, you need, like, there's way too much demand for energy to have it solved by only one source, right? So you're going to have
Right.
both of them coming up, but I think it's these other external factors, like, okay, there's a war happening over here that's impacting one part of the business, maybe not renewables, but there are these other rules and regulations in the US that is, right? That's driving some of the, how many more people do we want to move around today? How can we afford it?
Yeah, get in the comments, y'all. I want to hear your questions here for Nirav. Jillian checking in. I see you. Daisy checking in. Appreciate you. Daisy made a quick little Chick-fil-A run. Chick-fil-A doesn't actually sponsor the show, but I do appreciate it very much. Mel over here with a big howdy, a big Texas howdy. So happy to see you on the show. Thanks, Mel. Appreciate you. And Rob's got a question. I don't see a pun in here, so we're gonna have to say this with a straight face. How can mobility or total rewards challenge their company to identify and prioritize the strategic priorities that mobility can then incorporate into its program? That's a good
Yeah,
question.
Rob's really gotten after me today. So,
Yeah,
but
he went for throwing softball puns at you to throwing high and tight in
I
the
know,
inside there.
I know. And this is also like another really interesting challenge, right? Um, I mean, it's not always easy to have a seat in the table when you're in HR in general. In some places, you do have that. In some places, you earn it over time. In this case, there is the thing is, to me, like, mobility does not sit in isolation with the broader workforce plan and workforce strategy, right? So the connection that you'd want to make to try and I help influence the mobility priorities is to make the link to, when you move people, right? You move them for a reason. Again, it's, are you doing it to develop them? Are you doing it to help them develop somebody else, right? So if that is a company's priority, mobility tends to be a pretty integral cog in making sure that happens. It might not be in the identification, but it might be in, let me make sure that you get where you need to be and you're taken care of within the principles of our programs, that you're focused on getting your work done, right? It could be that. But I think if you start making those connections to be able to talk to the business on those terms, that then leads to the outcomes, right? Which is, whatever it might be, right? Whatever your KPIs are that we were talking about, better upskilling or developing the workforce. I think if you start doing that is when I think you start getting your elbows on the table as well, or staying there. So hopefully that helped Rob a little bit at least.
Yeah, no, it was great stuff. Get in the comments, y'all. We're taking your questions here. We've got Nirav Desai here from Hanwha Energy USA. I want to go back here to your story because I kind of got sidetracked a little bit.
Yeah.
I love talking to global mobility professionals about their global mobility journeys. I just think it's so fun. I think it's one of the unique threads that I see oftentimes is that folks in this space are globally curious folks. I think it's what makes us interesting. I think it's what makes us empathetic. I think it's what makes us so informed. Talk to me about some of your relocation experience personally.
Yeah, and I actually love to talk about this because it really forms the memories that I have with me, right, and my family. So right, so where I think I left off was, went back to grad school, started working with ExxonMobil, right? So that was like my first move from Austin to Houston, right? Spent a couple of years there, business partner kind of stuff. But then the company said, well, move to California. So then it was just, at that point with my wife and myself. So we packed up. I mean, well, we were helped pack up, but we moved to Torrance, and I got this like amazing opportunity. Working at a refinery which tended to be in the middle of the city not in the middle of nowhere, right? Not next to a water channel. It was like
Yeah, I
10
thought
or more.
refineries were in the middle, like the Permian Basin or something. I didn't know they're in the middle of Torrance,
Yeah,
California.
yeah. So I got to have that experience, and the cool thing about that is, um, it it's important to be mobile when you can, right? Because I would not have gotten a site experience sitting in a headquarters location situation in Houston, right? I got it at the site, and so sometimes you got to move if you want those experiences. So that happened, but then after 2 years, it was back to Houston. Ended up supporting the company's procurement organization, and it wasn't a mobility role, but there was a huge mobility interplay because what happened during that time frame was it was when Russia had the Rosneft sanctions, and maybe many of you might remember that meant anybody who had expats in Moscow supporting Rosneft had to be shipped back like pronto, right? So there was a lot of experience over there. But then personally, it was then back to Houston, moved to Dallas. So I did spend some time in Coppell for
There
a
you
couple of
go.
years over there.
Yeah, Coppell,
Um,
just down the street. My cousin lives there.
yeah, that was nice. And then after that, it was, hey, guess what? Like you've moved domestically, and that's probably enough. So now we want to send you to someplace across the pond, right? So I got moved to Hamburg, Germany, and this was in a compensation role, supporting a few countries in Europe, designing their salary programs. I mean, completely, surprising.
What was that like moving to Hamburg, Germany?
Oh yeah, amazing. So like this is like my lesson where I wouldn't say I'm the most open-minded person, right? But these sort of moves have helped me improve in that aspect. So initially, like the reaction went like, wow, I am being sent on an expat assignment. This is like a huge opportunity, like super excited, right? And then like very quickly
Right.
the reality hit, which is, oh, yeah, I need to talk to my wife because we had no idea this was coming. Like, I have no idea what's gonna happen now, right?
So you
And
hadn't
then
even talked to her at first, but you're excited, and
yeah,
then the thought of talking to her probably made you nervous, because
yeah, I was just not expecting this, right? And
right,
the thing is, like, we do have like a very transparent relationship, and so we know what our collective mobility requirement is. We just didn't expect to go overseas. So then she's excited about it, which is like awesome. And
yeah,
then we're excited again, and then like all the work starts, right? So then it's like, well, you need to go and make sure you get your visa, and you do this and you do that, and get your good stuff. Oh, and you need to wrap up your work here, but you also got to start working your new assignment now. So then it's just a lot of overwhelming, right? So you're going through this cycle, but then we finally moved there, and one of my first reactions was Germany. I don't really like Hamburg. I haven't even heard about Hamburg. What am I gonna do there? And I've heard it's really cold, and it is compared to Texas at least, right? Um,
right.
yeah, we don't know anyone, and so we're also nervous about that whole thing, right? End up going there, and 2 years down the line, we were like, oh, I don't think I want to move back. I mean,
Oh wow.
because the stereotypes are, well, these Germans like super direct, very true, maybe not as approachable, but my wife and I have ended up making friends who we are in touch with today. Um, you know, uh, Really close. Like it was actually being open-minded to. I thought about this in one way. It was completely different, and it changed our lives. Our kids, spend their, first 2 or 3 years over there as well. So my youngest son picked up German in 6 months. He was a year and a half. I had no idea he did that. So you don't
Wow.
know what you learn, right, with a situation like that, aside from what you learn at work.
Wow. That's so interesting. The fact that, at first you're nervous to go. I mean, you're excited, but then you're nervous, and there's all the work. And then you get there and then you don't want to leave. I mean, you
Yeah.
know, so now you've lived in India, you lived in the United States, you lived in Germany.
Mhm.
And then what happened after Hamburg?
So after Hamburg, moved back to the U.S. That's where I started delving into talent acquisition design, and just to hit on that because you had a question.
I do.
That
I'm very
was
curious what that means.
Yeah. So I mean, there's always an operational aspect, right? But there is also when you start with like like what are we like what really is our sourcing strategy, right? Like are we looking at like building our pipeline through university candidates or more experienced skill sets? Like what proportion, what schools do we go to? And the schools are not, hey, let's go look at US news, right? It's more about, do we know, the people who worked for us historically, where have they come from? Who are the ones who stayed? Who are the ones who performed well? So putting all that together and developing some kind of, cohesive playbook, right? As to who do we go after, how do we get them, and then what's the right offer, right?
So did
Was
that help
yeah,
you to start targeting certain skill sets and maybe certain universities even?
yeah, and that's that's how the company had always worked it, but I had to go in and take a look at it from like a fresh eyes perspective, right?
Right.
But yeah, that's how it worked, and that's an experience then that I took eventually to know refreshing the mobility program. Like start with we've done something for years, but like where are we today, and how do we now want to modernize it? But yeah, there are certain schools that companies go to. It's not always based, and not just ExxonMobil, right? It's not always based on university ranking. It's based on a fit, which is also very difficult to measure, like really difficult.
Like what kind of like fit? Like there like different cultures within the university? Is there like or within different universities or different like how would it be more than just the ranking in US News and World Reports or whatever that is? Like what is it?
Yeah. So so part of it is part of it is like there are some universities where you'll find students who want to work in the oil and gas industry, right? Who
Right.
want to come to Houston and relocate to Houston. You might not get that from, I'm just as an example, the University of California at Berkeley may not be that university, right? But
Mm,
Texas A&M or UT Austin might, and
right.
they might be willing to move. They might be compatible with the benefits that oil and gas brings, and therefore they might end up being dedicated to that company and stay longer, right? Versus
That
saying,
makes a lot of
right,
sense.
so that's the kind of thing that companies look at, right? And part of what we try to do as well.
Get in the comments, y'all. This is super interesting. Talking about designing talent acquisition programs, designing global mobility programs, talking about Nirav's uh, personal global mobility journey. We've got a couple questions about your global mobility journey here. Can we take some
Yeah.
questions here? Sharina asked, Nirav, did you prefer living in California or Texas?
Um, yeah,
This is a question Sharina asks herself every day.
yeah. So I'll say I loved living in Torrance. So this was like our first son was born there, but he was only there for we were only there for 3 months with him, right? So this was my wife and myself. It was a cool place to live. Like 2 miles from the refinery, 2 miles from the beach. I bike to work like every day. Like I bike to work every day. I loved it, right? My
Right.
wife drove 20 miles to Santa Monica, and all she remembers about California
The
is
traffic.
sitting in traffic, right?
Oh,
So we had that experience, and it's a very different experience here in Texas. So to get to your answer, putting it all together, we prefer, and I prefer living in Texas right now. But if I had to say, well, where would you be, 15 years ago? I'd say California. So
right.
it's just time dependent, right? Texas for now, though.
I understand what you're saying. People ask
Yeah,
me this all the time because I've lived in Texas, I've lived in New York, I've lived in
yeah,
Tampa, Clearwater, I've lived in Raleigh, I've lived in Detroit, and people always say like, "Which is your favorite place to live?" And I'm like, "You got to understand, I was a very different person when I was
yeah,
going to college in Albany, New York, to when I was, a newlywed or single in Tampa." To when I had my first child in North Carolina, these are all
yeah,
to where I'm a business owner in Texas. Like
yeah,
these are all different me's, forget the different places. So
yeah,
I'm not a constant in this variable.
yeah, for sure. That's a great point. By the way, I studied, I got my advertising degree at Syracuse, so not too far from Albany.
Yeah, there you go. Go Cuse. I went to some fun parties in Syracuse, actually.
Yeah.
Let's see. We got another question here. Daisy said, I've heard that repatriation can be harder than the initial expat assignment. She asks, what was your favorite part of Germany?
Yeah. So, I actually agree, Daisy, on the repat piece. So part of this to me was when we were expatriating, we had a lot of support, right? It was, you might have an expatriate advisor, and you have, relocation policy, and you have these allowances, and yeah, you're getting used to a new country and things like that. But like in 3 or 4 months, we started flowing in, and we had all this support. On the way back, it was all right. You're back to your home country. Let's move you. You know
Yeah.
exactly how
You
things
know
are,
what to do.
right?
Come on
Yeah.
back. Yeah.
Just and that actually was a reverse adjustment, right? It's not like I've forgotten how things work, but we had a different muscle memory built in at that point in time. And I was like, what? There's no one there to help me. So it was an adjustment back. I agree with you on that. And my favorite part in Germany, that's really a tough one. I mean, I know it's cliche to always say something like it really was the people, but it was like it really made a huge difference. It was cold, it was dark in the winter, but the people were a bright spot for us.
Love it. Love that. Yeah. Rob Zeitz representing upstate New York schools, Ithaca College. Shout out to Ithaca. Ithaca College, the best school in Ithaca. Tony Hill says, hey, Tampa Tone was different. Tampa Tone was different. Tony, were you out there at Shepherd's playing beach volleyball or something? What was your deal, Tone? Love it. This is great. Oh my gosh. Get in the comments, y'all. If you got questions for Nirav here, we're talking about living in different places, the challenges. I find it so interesting, Daisy, your point here. And Nirav, it sounds like you had a similar experience
Yeah,
about the repat can be harder than the expat. I think that is so interesting. It just sounds like it's just because we take it for granted that people are
yeah,
going to know how to fit back in.
yeah. We, I think that's exactly right.
But what are
Um,
we missing in that? What parts don't fit easily?
um, so I'm just trying to think back to to really some of the things that hit home, right? So to your earlier point on you're a different person at a different time in a different context, right?
Mm.
So, e.g., moved to Germany, my kids are a year and a half and 3.5, right? It's 2 or 3 years later, they've changed. So my sort of priorities have changed with them, right? Now coming back and I'm worried about, well, how does the school system work? Because
Because they're
yeah,
going now.
maybe I
Yeah.
should know this, but my kids weren't old enough, so I don't know this, right? So then you're like, I need to go and figure it out. And sometimes you're moving back to the same house that you moved from. Sometimes you're moving to a completely different city, right?
And
You
now
don't
they
have
speak German. Half their life they've been learning German. Their young life.
yeah. But like even like for you, right? It's you don't necessarily like you may not have your foundation, friends, family when you move back. I mean, you might be moving to a different place. So like who do you talk to? Who do you ask? So you don't necessarily have some support system there. So maybe there's a little bit of thought on, hey, a little bit of it's not about the money, right? It's not about here's some money, go in and figure a way to get transition, but maybe there could be a little bit more let's help you get resettled back to your home country, even though it's your home country, because your perspective has changed too, right? You might not know anything about the place you're moving to.
Is
So,
there an appetite for companies to actually support the repatriation in a bigger way? I mean, we think about it so obvious on the expatriation. Oh, the guy's going to Germany. He's going to need some help. Oh, they're coming back home, quote unquote, home. Is there, but what's the appetite for companies to invest in that?
um, I, I think it's limited. Um,
Yeah.
Again, for the reasons you said, like, hey, it's either taken for granted or you're back. You should know what it is, like
Right.
everybody else, right? I do think it's a limited appetite when you're thinking about finite budgets, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's so interesting. That's so interesting because a lot of times what we like to do, we're real fond of measuring the outcomes after an assignment.
yeah,
Right. And we talk about the failure of assignments during assignment,
yeah.
but we also talk a little bit about the failure of assignments after the assignment. But I'm wondering if that repatriation friction is a driver for some of the near term failure after they come back.
I think you have a point there. Um, I mean, I don't have any, maybe because people haven't studied it too, right? No data points, but I think you're right. I think there is some kind of maybe correlation there.
Yeah, and the good part about our show is we don't use data. We just make up stuff over here. So
Yeah, I think
that's
you're
the
right though,
fun.
instinctively.
Yeah, we're just all instinct and conjecture,
Yeah,
basically here. Rob's got a fun question here. Daisy, I
definitely.
see companies don't want to invest in the costs associated with repass, and it's a shame. Yeah, Daisy, you're right.
Yeah.
Rob, let's answer Rob's question. What's scarier, Audubon or Houston
Yeah,
traffic?
definitely Houston. I have not seen a couch on the highway on the Autobahn. I have seen multiple couches and other things on I-45. I mean, the closest I got to anything that was like a little intimidating was like the funny part is we went there and we were very practical. So we said, all right, like we're probably gonna be here for a few years only. I don't want to spend money on a car. So we bought like a secondhand Toyota Yaris in Germany, right?
Yeah,
It barely moved on the Autobahn with the four of us. And I got these bikers like zooming in front of me saying, move over to the first lane because you're too slow for us, right? That's
right. That's so funny about the couch situation. This is this is one of my like real like hot takes or whatever. It's like if
yeah,
you haul anything that doesn't fit in your trunk, like in your trunk or your truck bed, like flush and fully, like a regular person should not be allowed to transport that. You should have to have a commercial license. I can't tell you. I was just driving. Gosh, it was 2 weekends. I'm driving to Austin. Okay, I see a guy in a truck. He's going down the road. He's got two. He's got three coolers. One here, and one on top. And he's got ratchet straps over the top. And this guy thinks he's probably going to the lake for a killer weekend. And this guy thinks he's safe. And he's doing 89 miles an hour, okay, in the left lane. And I'm like, man, that looks dicey. I pull over. I go to Bucky's, do my civic duty as a Texan, come back on the road. And I get back. And what do you think I see in the middle of the highway?
yeah, all
a
of it.
cooler, a cooler sitting right in the middle. And you know what? I ran over the lid. So the big cooler's in the other lane, and there's a lid right in my lane. Of course, now I'm doing 89 and I
Yeah,
can't swerve. So I just eat this cooler in my Cadillac. I just eat the lid. And I'm just fortunate the whole time that I didn't hit the big part of the cooler. But yeah, I mean, you're right. It's like, what are people doing out here? You should get a ticket for that.
yeah.
Honestly.
I'm not kidding you, like not to belabor this, but like literally last week, the small sort of sheds people put in the garden,
Yeah.
that was on like the highway, like
That is
I don't
so
know,
scary.
crazy,
And then
yeah,
how do you move it? Somebody's got to park and get out in the middle of the highway and
yeah,
move it. Oh my
yeah.
gosh.
So anyway, so yeah, Houston
Anyway,
over Audubon,
Houston, huh? Houston's
yeah,
worse than the Autobahn. That's great.
yeah,
Oh my gosh. Rob's got a oh, Rob's saying, yeah, huge waste. Yeah, it is. It
yeah.
is. It sure is, Rob. Great point. Excellent point. Good to see you, Rob, too, out there. Um, you've held some interesting roles here too, Nirav,
Mhm.
and um, not too long ago, you actually had an AI role. I'm looking at your AI strategy lead and comp systems product owner.
Yeah,
That sounds like an interesting job. What the heck does that mean?
yeah. It was it's like it was in the HR digital space, right? And the context of that is, because I've had experience looking at programs and then redesigning them, right? With AI coming in, the sort of challenge was, what do we do with this? Like, how do we figure out how AI should work in HR? And it's a bigger question, right, for a corporation to understand what they want to do with AI again, what the outcome is. So that role really was trying to, so I sat on a governance committee that was looking at how do we set principles for responsible AI. That was one hat for the entire company. What are some of the things we need to make sure people know so we use AI responsibly. But from the HR standpoint, it was, how do we create this roadmap from today to 5 years from now across, mobility, compensation, talent acquisition, business partnering, where we can understand how to leverage AI over time while not duplicating like the broader efforts from the company, right? Like you don't want like 15 different chatbots all over the place, right? For instance.
Right.
But also, how do you now help educate the workforce? Because honestly, like no one knows what's what in this space. This was like a few years ago, right? There's a little bit more of literacy now. So that role was really helping defining that roadmap and that literacy plan, right? And it was a lot about talking with PhDs who've actually written stuff on AI. Not as we know it today, but like AI is not a new field, right? Like there's stuff that's been happening, but also to people in risk and data architects and consultants, right? To understand where are we in that space. And so that was a very sort of fungible assignment because I'll continue to like learn and read. And even at Hanwha now, I'm helping with now how do we do it over here at Hanwha, right? Like what does AI mean for us? How do we want to get value out of it?
Yeah, it's interesting you talk about the duplication of efforts because
Yeah,
it does. It seems like everyone's on their own little AI journey within the company, right? People are
yeah,
different phases of adoption. They're using different tools. Some of them are tools that are, blessed in the organization. Some are
yeah,
just like, hey, I got my little chat GPT. I've got it kind of like the way I like it over here. It knows me. We have a great relationship, and everyone's kind of doing their own thing. It feels like a little bit.
yeah.
How big of a risk is this? What's the risk here in that?
I think it is quite a significant risk, but the good news is it can be managed, right? So I think like my learning here is what's happened is this came up so quickly, and it's this whole Gen AI piece that's taken everyone by storm. And so what happened then is, as individuals and consumers, everybody's like, why are we not using more AI? And then companies leadership is hearing about, well, there's this thing like AI, whatever it is, apparently it's going to save me a lot of money. Then there's this whole fear of missing out thing that's happening, right? So then people just jump into stuff because they think they're behind. The
Yes.
reality is, it's like it's actually maybe to mitigate these risks, right? Because the risks could be regulatory, they could be, loss of data, there could be really bad information that people use, right? Loss of skills, because now you use a chatbot and you're not using your brain anymore, right? It could be anything. But like, maybe some of this is take a step back and go slow so you can accelerate when you need to. Meaning start with again, what do we want, like what is our objective, but then move on from there to get some governance and work it centrally, right? It's cumbersome for people to come to a central committee to get permission for an AI use case, right? But do that because in doing so, you then are not like, well, HR has a chatbot where you can go and answer questions on mobility, but HR also has a different chatbot from a different company where you go and look at articles on the internet. Well, as a consumer, I don't want to go to like four different chatbots, right? I want to go
Right.
to one. But you can't manage it if you don't have some kind of slow moving central governance, right? But once you start setting up that in place, is how you start mitigating the risks, right?
So is the answer then to start a whole bunch of chatbots and then somehow bring them all together, or is it to
Mm, No,
or
no. I think the answer is I mean, well, okay. I don't know what the answer is. First of all, but like the
that's the
part of the
only
journey,
true thing I've heard about AI so far is I don't know
I
what
really
the
don't
answer
know.
is.
But like I think it's actually getting to know. Like you do need to get your foundation right. Like first of all, you really it's boring, but you got to make sure your data is correct, right? Because without data, the technology isn't going to do. It's not going to do anything. But then it's with the right data, you do need to have discussions with a number of different EG vendors, right, to understand what solution fits for you. Um, and that usually you have like several vendors who have a solution across the board, right? So you don't really need to go and create different chatbots. I wouldn't do that. But part of this is you're going to have some things that you probably want universal at the company level, right? Like for example, um, you don't want Copilot and Claude and ChatGPT. You're at the enterprise level. It's like, what's the decision that typically is made through IT, right? Hey, everybody, we use Copilot, right? That's what we need to use for X. But
Mhm.
then within the functional level, I think depending on the use cases that you have, you start need to figuring out, okay, so I use SAP or Workday for my HRIS, right? They have certain capabilities they can turn on and off. That could include a chatbot. So let me first go and see if I can actually have them turn that on. It might cost me something, it might not. instead of going to another vendor and creating a chatbot for a specific reason, right? So then you start taking down functionally, how do I really leverage the sort of systems I already have in place with my connections? And then the third part is you'd go talk to your vendors, right? So in the mobility world, you'd go to Benevo or Airs or Carter, so whoever you're working with, right? Because they are also leveraging AI for certain things. So you figure out how you work with them to use their technology for your purpose and your benefit, right? It's a partnership.
How do you vet them to know if they're BS or not? Like
Yeah,
I feel
that's
like there's so much noise out there, and
yeah,
everyone claims to do everything, and then you get to use it, and you hear there's wildly different performance
yeah,
between Chat GPT, Claude, Copilot, etc. Like, how do you know what's BS? Like,
yeah. It's a bit of you don't know until you've tried it. Sometimes that's
yeah,
dangerous, but that's a reality today, right?
right,
But like in the picture of, well, this is a big investment, right? So this is where, like, the governance model I was talking to, actually it had a pretty um, intensive survey process that was technical in nature and risk related in nature, with questions that were asked to vendors, right? And so you do need, in different companies, the different resources, but you do need some level of vetting internally to say, here's the risk threshold that we're okay with, and these are the questions we want answers to. So for instance, you 2 years ago you start asking, like, hey, do you guys basically use our data to train your model? And if the answer was yes, you got to be very careful, because maybe you don't want that out there, right?
right,
um, but so you got to have those questions when you do this vetting, when you're working with somebody. So you got to know what those questions are, ask those questions, and then say, I really want this, but this one ain't working for me, right? But in terms of like the day-to-day use cases like ChatGPT or Claude, honestly, that's like an employee education and trial and error thing, right? Like, you want your employees to use AI tools as much as they can, because that's the only way we will collectively learn from the space. It's also the only way the technology will learn and get better, right? But I think part of the literacy to employees is, like, don't worry about, is AI going to take my job? Worry about learning the technology and using your judgment. And you have to take the time to ask the right question and then read the response. There's no shortcut there, right? Um, but as you start doing that is where I think you start understanding what's working, what's not working, what kind of question you should ask to get a better answer. But I guarantee you this, like, the mistakes that some of these tools were making a year ago, they're not making today, right? So
yeah.
the risk is there. The only way to work through it is to play with it.
Yeah, I mean, and that's scary because you're like, okay, there's a time
Yeah,
investment. What if I screw up? Rob says
yeah,
we're all on AI lens.
yeah,
Thanks, Rob.
yeah, yeah, Rob. We are.
Rob's like, we're all on AI lens.
Yeah,
Love AI Island. Anyway, sorry, these are the puns, y'all. Sorry. Um, Nirav, this has been a lot of fun. I know I know you got something special though. You and Sharina cooked up something special here for us here. We occasionally, we don't do this very often, but we occasionally do a top five. Okay. And we're gonna do a top five with you today, okay, Nirav?
all right.
And I think it's why don't you tell us why don't you tell us about your top five today, Nirav?
Yeah, so like in keeping off our theme of moving around and mobility, right? I'm a very active person.
Yeah.
We travel, when we can, but like I was like, here are my top five national U.S. national parks, right?
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Let's get into it. Sharina,
yeah.
how do we want to do this?
All
You want
right,
to do number five or number one? Number five?
number five. Yeah, number
Number
five.
five. Let's do number five.
So
All right.
so so perspective, right? There are like 60 plus parks. I haven't been to like nearly as many of them, but this one. So number five, Kenai Fjords National Park, in Alaska. Really cool. So this is actually a glacier, and what I like about this park is, this is called Exit Glacier. So it's literally, you're on the freeway, you exit, and then you do a little bit of a trek. and you can see this glacier. It's actually
Wow.
one of the glaciers you can walk to. We didn't get as far as to the actual glacier, but it's really neat, right?
How
Um,
massive. I'm always trying to like see the scale of this.
yeah.
Like
So
how
this is the
massive is
interesting
this?
piece. It's not a big glacier. The really big glaciers are out there in the ocean, right? In Kenai. This one, it's not huge. This is zoomed in a bit, but the interesting thing is it used to be huge, right? So as you start walking through the trail, you start seeing these markers that say, 20 years ago, here's where this glacier actually
Oh,
reached. And man, it's impactful, right? Because you keep walking and you keep walking and you keep walking, and now you see this thing, and you're like, oh my gosh, this used to be huge, and
is-
it's
and so
not.
we can
So
infer from that that it just continues to melt, continues to
yeah,
melt.
yeah.
And then do you know an estimate of when this glacier may no longer exist? I mean, have they
No,
given
they
us that?
they had an estimate. I can't remember what it is, but
Okay.
but this is still it's still pretty large. It's just it's amazing, right? When you walk through that journey of how it's changed.
Yeah,
Um,
really cool. Really cool.
yeah.
Let's go to number 4 here.
So number four, this is a small park. It's in Colorado for those of you who've been. Great Sand Dunes National Park. So
Great sand. It is in Colorado?
yeah, it's in Colorado. It's not too far.
This
It's
looks
like
like
maybe
North Africa.
yeah, it does, right? So
Yeah.
so this is so there. It's the largest sand dunes in the U.S., maybe North America. Like I think 750 or 800 feet is the largest one, and there's no trail, right? You literally walk past a really nice creek, shallow water, and then you have sand dunes, and you just start pick one and start walking up one, right? It's not easy, but then you have these boards, and you can actually go. You can go like sand dune boarding down these dunes, right? These are my boys, and I think we
That's
had like
awesome.
80. We climbed like 80 stories that day.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Well,
so
because
it's a really good
yeah,
experience.
the flip side of sandboarding down a dune is now walking back up the dune,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
It was. That's how we got to the 80 stories, right? So,
Wow.
um, yeah, it was
That is
something.
so cool. What creates a sand dune like this in the middle of Colorado? Every time I've been
Um,
to Colorado, it's pretty, a lot of forests, a lot of trees, rivers.
yeah, I mean, so you actually have, you have these dunes. They are the backdrop is there's a mountain range, right? It's like a 14,000 foot mountain range, and I think there's over time there's been a lot of like deposits with wind, etc., that have ended up building up these dunes.
Wow,
But this
interesting.
is like pretty unique, I would say.
Yeah, very cool. I love this.
Yeah,
And there's a picture of your kids. So you took
yeah.
this.
Picture of my kids.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I actually like I didn't have one with them at the fjords, but it's there because of the scale, right? Sometimes.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Let's go to number 3
all right.
here.
Number three. This is probably one that most people have heard of, if no for no other reason other than for you two. So like Joshua Tree National Park.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Oh, wow.
so yeah, and so this is the Joshua Tree, one of them, right? Technically, it's actually I learned it's not a tree, right? It's not a tree; it's the yucca plant. But this is a really cool park because so if you think about Kenai Fjord, it's like glaciers and ocean and marine life, and then you have great sand dunes, that you just saw, which is um, basically being in the Sahara. This one, it's like you're on another planet, right?
It
If
was
you go through the
wild.
park, a lot of like boulders, rock, like known for rock climbing, and these trees that look like you're in Mars or Venus or I don't know where, right?
Yeah. Like
Really cool.
trees that are yucca plants. So this is like the is this the yucca plant like the yucca that we eat?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think it's like part
Okay.
of the family, really.
Okay.
Yeah,
Wow. It kind of looks like a palm almost. I don't know. It's
yeah.
wild.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a nice park. It's not too far from Palm Springs, right? Which is a nice place to stop in that
Okay.
park.
All right. All
All
right.
right,
Let's keep it going.
well,
Number
let's
2.
keep going. Number two, right here in Texas. To me, it's underrated. It's probably the most underrated park, right? For me, it's like Big Bend National Park. Um,
Yeah.
10 hours from Houston. So this is balanced rock, right? It's you climb up 40 minutes and this national formation that looks like it could drop on my kids at any point in
And
time.
I know it looks like dangerous. Honestly, it's giving me a little agita right
Yeah,
now.
but it's still there. But this park is, like desert, canyons, great views, amazing hikes, right? wouldn't recommend you go there in the summer, but springtime, the wildflowers bloom, and around Thanksgiving, the weather is just perfect for hiking. It's just out there, right? So it's not as easy to get to.
Yeah, very cool. Big Bend. Yeah, this is highly rated for Texans. Texans like know this one.
Yeah.
But outside of Texas, I feel like people don't really talk about it
Yep.
much.
Yep. Definitely underrated.
Let's go to number
All right.
one.
Number one. So my personal favorite, I've been here like multiple times. Rocky Mountain National Park, another one of the Colorado ones.
Yeah.
So this is like Nymph Lake, and what I like about this park is very accessible, right? From Denver, Estes Park, but it gives you, the alpine experience. It gives you, the lake treks. It gives you a lot of wildlife. We saw, like, I did not see one moose in Alaska. I saw like a mama moose with like two, like 2 week old baby me's, right? Like
Baby
right
me's.
there,
Right.
So it has it all. As far as I'm concerned, like this park has it all for an experience.
Aren't moose like dangerous though? Don't you got to be kind of
Yeah.
careful with the moose?
Yeah. You do, right? You do. Like you can't like moose, bison, like any wildlife, right? But um, it's not like we were out there like taking selfies, but we actually got to see something, right?
Yeah. I saw a close encounter with a moose the other day on Instagram. It scared the hell out of me. Oh man, these are great photos too with your family and everything. What great memories these are.
Definitely.
This is fantastic. You know what? So we got just a minute here. Holly Downey says this is amazing. The memories you are creating, for sure. Do you think your kids appreciate these trips? Or are they, oh, dad, again?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't want to take another picture.
No, they do. They really
cool.
do. And I grew up going to parks, so I take them there. So hopefully they'll continue that, right?
Yeah, that's super cool. Super cool.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? We got time. We got a little bit of time here for our game. Overrated, underrated. You ready, Nirav?
Let's do it.
All right. Do you know how to play the game?
I think so.
Okay, we're gonna find out. All right. I'm gonna give you a topic, and you are gonna tell me if it is either overrated or underrated. Okay.
Yeah, we'll do.
You ready for this? And then I'm gonna tell you if you're right. Let's get into it, Nirav. First one up, Houston.
Oh, Houston, underrated.
Oh, you're so close, Rob. You're so close, Nirav.
Houston.
It's actually overrated. Actually, I just looked it up on Wikipedia. It's actually overrated. No, I'm just kidding. Actually, I got a lot of love for Houston, but everyone talks about when they talk about Texas, they always talk about Houston. I think Dallas is where it's at, but hey, whatever. Yeah. What's your favorite thing about Houston besides the people? You can't say the people.
Well, technically, I'm in the Woodlands, right? So let me just go there. I like basically the open.
So you
space.
feel the same way about Houston? It's overrated. So Woodlands is where it's
Maybe
at.
you're right. Yeah. Okay, you're right.
I'm just kidding. What's your favorite part about Houston?
Well, not I-45. I like I like. I mean, the amount of space we have over here in general. I know it's a big city, but compared to California.
Yeah. I actually always have fun when I'm in Houston. I always knock it. It's not as organized and it's not as I'm not even going to use the word clean. I'm going to use the word sterile. Dallas can be kind of sterile, especially the northern suburbs. It can lack character, and Houston has a little bit more grit in a good way. Yeah. And the food is fantastic. So I don't know. Underrated. Rob says underrated, amazing food. Rob, we'll take recommendations. All right, next one up. Overrated, underrated. The World Cup.
Oh, I would say like technically it's rated where it needs to be, but if I had to pick one, I'd say always underrated. Always underrated.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. Do you know how many people watch the World Cup, Nirav? Or the World Cup final?
I actually don't in the latest ones, but I know it's basically in general like football tends to be the most watched sport, right, in the world.
Yeah, it's like 10 times more people than watch the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
like it's 10x. It's crazy.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I think it's underrated. I had so much fun having it in the United States this year, and then because we're in a host city, as you are, I think, Houston was too. Seeing all of the folks from all the different nationalities coming in, and just watching them get to experience our culture was super cool too.
Yeah, talk about like global, right? Mobility.
Yeah,
I mean,
for sure. All right, next one up, overrated, underrated, the NBA.
Yeah, this one to me is overrated, right?
Oh wow.
I'm like, all right, guys, look, a ton of games in this. It's very popular, right?
He's like, popular. Okay, fine, we get it. You're tall. Okay, we get it. All right.
Well, I'm like, like, does anybody play defense? Like, why do the last 2 minutes take 20 minutes? Like, everyone then is on their phones, right, for all the free throws that you shoot. Versus
The
like,
fouling back and forth is
yeah,
annoying at the end.
yeah, yeah. Versus like, okay, again, it's not the same comparison, but think about like the World Cup. Like, there's like non-stop noise for like 90 minutes, right,
Yeah.
with the fans. It's and maybe there may be one goal, but that goal is consequential versus
Yeah.
140 to 128. So, in my view, playoffs are fun, but overrated.
Man, you make a really good case, okay? But as an NBA season ticket holder, I gotta say it's
All right.
underrated, okay? Maybe your
All right.
Rockets are overrated, all right? But my
Yeah.
Mavericks are underrated. We're going all the way this year. I think the NBA has a lot of potential. I think everything you said is true. The
Yeah.
last 2 minutes of the game should be the most exciting 2 minutes, not the most boring 2 minutes. And I do think you have a phenomenal point there. But I think the action in the NBA is phenomenal. I think the
All right.
stars and stories are great. I do think the women's league, the WNBA, is phenomenal. But I'm with you on the noise thing too. I think that goes for all American sports. We
Yeah.
look at what Europe or South America or some of these other countries do when it comes to cheering and chanting and smoke bombs and flags and banners. Like, I mean, I want more of that for sure.
Yeah.
1,000%.
With you. With you. Fair points.
Rob's looking for the Celtics win, which is often. Yeah, but you got rid of Jaylen Brown, dude. I don't know, y'all. Next one up, overrated, underrated. Running outdoors.
100% underrated.
Ooh, you were so close, actually.
Come on.
Oh, no, I'm just kidding. That's just running. That's just the anti-runner. No, tell me about why running outdoors is the way to go.
Look, I mean, I'm torching myself one way or the other, right? I'd rather like do it where I feel the wind, I see some nice scenery, I wave out to people versus being a hamster like in a glass box, right? In
Yeah,
a gym.
that's a good
So to
point.
me, yeah,
That's a good point. You get a little vitamin D, you're out there. Yeah.
yeah,
That's a great point. I almost agree with you. Okay. But I'm sorry.
yeah.
It's still overrated. It's 100 and, well, it's 96. Sorry. Right now it's 96 and sunny. It was
Yeah,
108 yesterday.
yeah, it was
Sharina,
bad.
you a big outdoor runner? No.
Okay. Yeah,
Jim.
so she's
Okay.
like, no,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
overrated.
That's a tough sell in Texas, dude. It's a
Yeah,
tough sell. What
I did
time do
run
you run? Are
yesterday.
you an early morning runner, late night runner?
It's usually evenings because of work, right? But I'll run when I can versus not.
I ran in the limited amount of times I've run in my life. Honestly, I always feel like a criminal when I run at night. And
Yeah,
I just can't I can't bring myself to run in the morning. So
yeah,
I have a real tough time with it. We got one
yeah.
more? One more. Overrated, underrated.
Oh,
Universal Studios.
yeah. So I am more of a national park kind of guy, but I will say we just visited a few months ago and underrated with the way it works out today. Very
Why is it
underrated.
underrated?
Um, it was a very different family experience. My kids like Harry Potter, right? And the way they worked out that whole world has given them a different set of memories with us. We also are thrill seekers, and some of the roller coasters there are a lot of fun.
Nice.
Also, like compared to Disney, I didn't tend to wait as much in line. So, yeah,
Oh, you gotta love that.
yeah,
Sharina loves Universal Studios. Holly misses her Sonics, and I'm gonna say it's underrated. Also, I think we're getting a Universal Studios here in North Dallas.
yeah,
What's
you
that?
are.
It's
Yeah,
open.
it's open. It's for kids, like younger kids.
Oh, it is. Okay. Okay. Well, apparently, I don't know what I'm talking about. There you go.
Yeah,
No, that's awesome. Nirav, that was fantastic, and it sounds like you guys have some great memories you're making out there. Nirav, this has been so much fun. I really appreciate you coming on the show. Nirav Desai here, Total Rewards at Hanwha Energy. Nirav, I really appreciate you being here. This was so much fun, dude.
yeah. Well, thank you for having me. Thanks for all the interaction. You guys can find me on LinkedIn if you ever want to talk. I'm always ready to talk about AI, just to learn, if nothing else. So hit me up.
I love it. Connect with Nirav out there, y'all. And thanks, everybody. And hey, shout out to Sharina, by the way. Today's her last show as our producer, and we're going to miss her. She's done such a phenomenal job here. So shout out to Sharina. We appreciate you so much out there. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate y'all for being a part of this. Take care.